This episode was originally a live conversation recorded at Startup Night's Winter Tour in November 2023.
People just think, I just need to have a bigger market and more people and a bigger addressable market. But this is not the right approach for marketplace. It's the opposite. That's just the larger you go, the more risk you have to die.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Sylvan.
Viktor, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here and host you here at Startup Nights in Winter Tour.
The pleasure is mine, thanks.
You are the founder and former CEO at Coople, Europe's largest digital staffing platform. Before we talk about your impressive entrepreneurial career and journey, I actually want to start with your first jobs, basically. You spent some years in consulting and through the 90s and early 2000s, before you then decided to start Coople in 2009, you started working on your idea and your project. First of all, what was it like to start a company in Switzerland back then in 2009 when startups were not the cool thing to do yet?
Yeah, I must say that before Coople, I even started another company, which was kind of my first entrepreneurial experience. And that was an event agency. And that was a funny story because after all the years of consulting, I felt I need to do something which is nice, where I can have a lot of fun. And it turned out that event agencies are a bit fun, but there is a lot of work too. So, that was my first entrepreneurial experience. And it was a really good step because I think it taught me a lot of the basics of entrepreneurship without being too shiny. At the end, nobody was waiting for a new event agency to pop up. And we had to fight hard to become a player in this market, which we finally achieved. And at the same time, I could experience what it means to have a business which is not really scalable in itself. So how do you select the right business plan? But in the end, it was a really good school for me in order to understand, okay, what do I do next? And that's where part of the idea of Coople came from, to see how bad the whole staffing industry is basically catering the need of flexibility and short-term and short notice staffing.
And what happened to this event agency then when you decided it was time for the next chapter?
We sold it. So it was pretty successful. We earned good money, but I could feel that this is not my final destination. I could feel that it's a nice business, something that I like to do, especially from the creative side. There were some elements where you just create this nice ideas on what kind of events you do. We had great customers like ZKB or AMAG and so on. So we did some really nice projects. But I could feel like I'm still coming from the digital side. So I was missing kind of this digital venture, which then came with Coople.
Fantastic. Yeah. So you first got sort of, your taste of entrepreneurship and even the first success story to share. Did you then start Coople right away after the agency business, or did you do a detour to consulting first?
No, it was just, I can say I had to face down the event agency because of Coople, because Coople started to be successful. It started as a side project. I think the first time I wrote something about this in my book was even in my consulting days. And then during the event agency time, I just felt the pain myself, what it means to not be flexible enough, to have to recruit everybody to do the contract. So it was for me just, okay, let's start to think about it. And then I started to just have my notebook, writing down something. Then at the weekend, I started to do some slides. And then it grew. And eventually then I was accepted into the CTI program. And then I got elected venture leader in 2012. And so there was a point where I had to decide, what do I want to do? And for me, it was clear I will stop the event agency and move into this new adventure.
I love it that you sort of started this out of your own problem that you wanted to solve for the event agency. Yeah. You mentioned you had to decide to focus on one or the other. I feel many entrepreneurs tinker around with some ideas, multiple ideas at the same time. How do you make that decision what to focus on? Because that's not always easy to first of all focus and then to decide what to focus on.
Yeah, maybe first of all, I'm not a big supporter of part-time entrepreneurship. I think once you feel that's the thing I believe in, you should go all in. And I do teach and coach some startups, and a lot of them say, yeah, I have this job and I'm starting to hire, but these guys don't want to come. And well, that's not a surprise. If you're not all in, how can you expect others to believe in what you're doing? Right. So it all begins with you. And I think at the time, I just thought, this is so clear, this is gonna work, and I was just all in and say, there is no plan B.
It sounds like that came very natural to you. You didn't really have to force yourself to focus. It was quite natural, as it seems.
It was natural. I could really feel that it's time to do it, and I could feel that the customers were ready to just really embark in this journey. But still, the feedback from the market was negative, or at least the experts all say, no, this is never going to work, and so on. But I think the moment where I felt these guys were saying, no, it's not going to work, but they had not a real rational explanation why it should not work, I felt it's just about executing it and being resilient.
What did you do then? You had the idea, you had the problem yourself, and you basically started tinkering around with this idea yourself. How did you start to validate it? I think back then you still called it Staff Finder, yes, before you rebranded to Coople. Yes.
So we started in a very basic way, and we just went out and sold the proposition before the product was even there. Yeah. So I really picked up the phone, called 20 potential customers and told them, listen, I just want to know how you manage your stuff. Let me know. I'm just doing a study. I want to understand it in detail. And so we went through it, and they started to explain me some of the pains. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the call, I say, what if I can just remove all your pains? I say, well, that would be great. And say, okay, I'm going to call you in a few months.
What were the pain points that they mentioned there?
It was just the admin when they did it themselves. It was the problem to not find one big pool. So especially if you do promotions and you need 50, 100 people for just one specific day, or 50 people across 50 different locations, then things become very, very complex. Yeah. The legal aspects, all the payment, and just reliability of the workers. So there were plenty of problems because all the large agencies didn't do that. So because from a financial point of view, just this few hours work are just not enough to cover the costs of doing all the work. So it was very clear that this is just a self-service proposition, that you need to automate the whole value chain in order to make this possible. And so we started, and we had zero automation, and we started to do jobs, and we told them, yeah, we are fully automated, we're going to do this. And in the background we're just writing emails and doing all the stuff. Well, customers didn't care. They got the front end journey, which was good, and in the back end we automated over time.
And I love this. It was your own problem you started with, then you went out there, you validated and saw, do other companies, other people have the same problem? Yes. And then you basically launched sort of an MVP a few months later when you got back to them, right?
Absolutely. And I think we not only validated and asked them, we sold it. Yeah. So I think that's the validation at the end, because many times you go out, you talk to them, say, yeah, that's nice. But the moment where they just need to pay for something, that's the validation itself. I think that's the strongest method.
The real validation.
The real validation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who were the companies that you worked with there in the early days? Did you mainly focus on other event companies, or what was the focus?
Yeah, through the event agency, obviously, I had a good network of suppliers, of other event agencies, of event locations, of restaurants, and so on. So that was kind of the natural first customer group, which worked out okay. So we had a lot of other experiences as well, a learning experience where somebody booked 4 people for one night to dismantle a tent and nobody showed up. So he was not really happy to have to do the work at 4 a.m. alone. But yeah, that was all the path to success. And I think it was a very valuable one.
You had 2 co-founders that basically built the business with you, but before you actually got them on board, you were tinkering around with the idea on yourself.
Yeah, it even started in 2009. I started the company. I was thinking around this idea, I think, from 2007 on. So the founding of the company 2009 was with a co-founder, so a person I know from before. But then after a little while, we just realized he was busy with something and he was not fully bought in. So we decided that that's not going to work, and it was all fine. So I took over all the shares, but I didn't know that I'm not the kind of person who wants to do a solo thing, and the project is way too big to just do it alone. So I was working for myself for about another year or so, and then I started to look around to see who would be a good co-founder, and then I found one person which is strong in more of the back office part, which is something I can do, but definitely not my strong suit. And then I thought, okay, I've never worked in the recruitment business. Maybe I will need somebody that has experience in the recruitment business, that knows how this is going. So I brought in a co-founder from that side too. And yeah, we started in 2011 and went online August 2011.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That sounds like you very strategically sourced your co-founders with the skill set that sort of complemented yours.
Yeah.
How did you go about finding them? Did you have a previous work history, or how did you find your 2 co-founders?
It was still a bit opportunistic, I must say. Both of them were are still my friends, and they were both involved in shaping the idea just long before, because just going out, having some drinks with them, say, hey, I have this idea, what do you think? And they were kind of challenging me on the different points. And then eventually we got to the point where the timing for them was right, but at the same time, they felt like, oh, there is nothing I can really challenge anymore. And they felt, wow, this is really going to work. And so they said, well, let's just do it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think it's very normal that some co-founders leave the journey along the way.
Yeah.
I think that's just part of starting a company and having a business. Yeah. You said you purchased all the shares back. Did you have any mechanism in place that sort of protected the company, or was that more of a friendly agreement with the leaving?
I think so. In the early days, it was a friendly agreement. No. Because there was nothing there when we started the company. It was an idea. There was no product, nothing. No. And then obviously I learned out of that, and we set up shareholder agreement and everything, put it down in the right way. But I must say, it was just I was just lucky that the setup was like it is, and that we found a good way to separate.
And again, I think it's very normal that this happens, right? Absolutely. That's part of the journey. Absolutely. I want to talk about one of the biggest challenges you probably had to overcome. Mm-hmm. You are a platform business, right? So you have companies who are your customers, and you have people, workers, who basically help you to fulfill the staffing needs of these companies. Which side do you focus on more heavily, the demand or the supply?
Both. No, I think at the end, if you look at the marketplace, a marketplace is just not one marketplace. It's hundreds of micro marketplaces. So let's say dishwashers in Zurich is a small marketplace. And depending on the marketplace and then the dynamics of the marketplace, you may have to start on the worker side or on the employer side. If we look at nurses, you may better go and look for the workers, or the other way around. And if you look for just event assistants. There are plenty of event assistants, so you can recruit a lot of them. So you always start with the side that can wait longer. And for the event helpers, they can wait longer because there's not an urgent need. And on the other way around, if you have nurses, these nurses will find jobs instantly. So you will basically recruit companies and then bring in the nurses when you have the jobs ready.
Right. How did you figure this out? Is that just common sense in your business, or do you have a very data-driven approach to really measure the micro markets and what side you have to focus on?
Yeah, I think today we're very sophisticated. In the early days, it was hard learning. Now, today we understand very clearly what kind of supply we have. It's not only how many people you have, where are these people, are they active or not, in which point in time, what kind of activity do they have, depending on the job prospects, on salary levels, location, timings. So it's a very sophisticated setup, which you need to really understand in order to grow your marketplace in an efficient way.
Yeah. And you have so many different industries that you can work with, right? Yeah. Events, nurses that you just mentioned, just two of them. There are many more. How do you go about that to sort of say, hey, we want to have a clear focus early on? And did you just focus on one or two markets or micro markets at the beginning and then expand from there? Or what was the strategy there?
Yeah, I think that was something we probably didn't do too well. So we were a bit all over the place with gastronomy, hotellery, events. Just going back, I would focus much more and say, we're going to do, I don't know, half a year, just Zurich and just waiters. That would be a market big enough to really win. And then you could have this, just this effect, marketplace effects coming into play instead of just being a bit in Bern and a bit in Geneva and a bit in Zurich.
Right.
And yeah, we learned that over time. But I think we could have done it better.
It's probably this compounding effect, right? If you have a focus, you have a stronger compounding effect than spreading all across.
Yeah, it's if you think about it, it's not very logical because the more you focus, the quicker you grow. And people just think, I just need to have a bigger market and more people and a bigger addressable market. But this is not the right approach for marketplace.
Yeah. I think that's a great learning because many entrepreneurs exactly think, I need to grow above all sectors and geographies as quickly as possible. No. It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. That's just the larger you go, the more risk you have to die.
I love that. Please also explain us how your business model works. I think you transparently show that on the website, how you charge your clients. Please explain us how it works.
Well, I think at the end, it's very similar to the big players in the market, the recruitment business. We basically have people that go to work and we charge the client and then pay a salary. And there is a margin in between, which stays with us. Usually this is in the market somewhere between 15 and 20%. Yeah. And for this margin, we just need to do all the work, which means recruit, do the payroll. If people get sick, we need to handle all the cases, replacements. If they don't show up, we need to provide the system. So it's a pretty extensive service. So the margin is quite tight. But a lot of people don't understand that within the price we charge, there is a large part which is salary. Then there are social insurances of the worker,
of course.
And on top of that, there are social insurances of the company as well. So that out of the big salary they see, only a tiny margin remains for us. So that's what we call a net turnover. So we have a big gross turnover, but that's just money that flows out instantly.
Can you share how big this net turnover is?
As I said, we are currently somewhere around 150 million, and going towards the 200 million. And depending on market and areas, we may be in the range that I just said from net margin.
So with the lower margins that you said, because there's a lot of work behind it, is that an attractive business model? You know, of course you can make money, but is it like attractive and scalable?
Yeah, I think if you're fully automated, then things may work out. If you have to do it manually, especially if you're in this niche of short-term and short-notice work, we now are growing more and more into the long-term jobs in the main market where the big traditionals are playing. And that's where you make the big money, because every job, it doesn't matter if it's 2 hour or 500 hours, the work is the same,
right,
but the margin is very different because you have a margin per hour. So we move into the way more profitable market part, which is, let's say, more of a war zone than the other side. But we had enough time to prepare ourselves and to train in a very sophisticated and very difficult part of the market, and we feel we are ready to face the big guys.
Amazing. So if I understand that correctly, the sort of the acquisition and matching of the staff, basically that's the cost intense part. And if you can then increase the volume and basically have them working for the same customer repeatedly, that's how you can increase the volume to have a higher margin.
Yes, so definitely. So recruitment and matching and the payroll as well, just more or less the same. It doesn't matter if your pay slip is for 3 hours or it's 100% for 200 hours or whatever. But the margin is like 3 hours, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 francs of margin. 200 hours is 1,000 francs of margin.
Exactly.
And the same work. So you better have the second one.
Absolutely. Fully agree. You mentioned that there are these traditional agencies, the recruitment agency, the staffing agencies. Yeah. How do you compete with them? What is sort of your competitive advantage compared to them?
Well, first of all, we can solve all the problems of the company. So not only the long-term and big jobs, we can as well handle emergencies, short-term needs, which is something the big agencies still are not able to do. We have a fully digital play, so we can integrate into the system and automate ordering. We have all the data available, so we can give them full transparent costs daily. So I think there is plenty of different things which traditionals can just not do.
They're either too big or too slow to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And who are your typical customers today? Do you still focus on very specific verticals and industries, or who are your typical customers?
Yeah, we are still in hospitality, retail, logistics. We moved into healthcare with the COVID change, where we were a bit forced because hospitality and retail, or most of retail, was just muted. Right. So we had to find new ways and went into into healthcare, and we do office as well. So with these sectors, we basically have all the potential clients in Switzerland, all the companies may be customers, at least in the office space. And we have customers like Migros or Coople in retail, but we have customers, startups as well, the food delivery. Just Eat, we have just traditional players or insurances like Winterthur or AXA. So you name it. I think we have 25,000 customers. So there is a large representation of the market.
Absolutely. That's a very impressive number.
Yes.
This episode was brought to you by Google Cloud, a partner that needs no introduction. What you might not have heard of, though, is that Google offers a Google for Startups cloud program where they give you access to startup experts, technical training, business support, and cover your Google Cloud costs up to $200,000 for 2 years, or even $350,000 if you're an AI startup. Scale your startup faster and smarter with Google Cloud. Head over to goo.gle/Swisspreneur. And then if you look back at the timeline, in 2016, 2017, it seems that things really started to get big and to pick up. You had a turning point for the company. You changed your brand name to Coople. And at the same time, you also got an investment from Goldman Sachs, and you opened offices in London. Please take us back to this time. What happened then?
Yeah, we were pretty successful. Had a small business angel round early or late in 2012, I think, or the beginning of 2013, and things were moving quite quickly. So we were growing. I don't know, remember 150 to 200% year on year over the first year. So we're just really moving fast, and we felt like, okay, how should we go about it? So we're still burning cash. We felt like, okay, feels like a good momentum. We should bring in investors to grow quicker. So we started to think about fundraising and did a round. So we went out and then we got approached by a company in the UK, which was One Peak Partners, which is a specialized growth fund in the UK. We started to talk to them, and things evolved. Goldman joined the round as well, and we closed the round, I think, at the end of 2015. And so with that amount of money, we felt now, okay, we need to grow. We have the money now, and that was a big push. It was as well a bit of a hard time because I think from looking back, it was probably too early to scale the business. The product market fit was not yet 100% there, and scaling this across 2 different countries, and the product is not ready and our processes were not ready, was just too much. So I think we burned a lot of money, which probably could have been done differently, and it was just a very hard time to manage all the flying balls that were in the air.
I want to dive into this a bit more detail,
Yes.
because I feel you see growth, you see, oh, this is working, but still it doesn't feel like the product market fit is fully there yet, as it just described. And then many startups face the decision, do we double down, get more money and try to scale it and eventually figure out how we can actually get there? Or do we slow down, wait until we have the product market fit and then scale up? You decided for the first. What was lacking? What was not there in terms of product market fit yet?
I think it was the experience. We thought we have a product market fit, but we were still pushing the product into the market. It was not moving itself. And I think probably today I would go the other way and say, let's bring down the growth to appropriate level. Let's remove all the bottlenecks and then push once we are ready. I think just waiting 1 more year would have give us now on the long term way better growth and way less cash burn.
And what did then change when you say, hey, now we really hit the product market fit? Did you get much more inbound interest and requests from companies to work with you, or how did you feel that change?
Yeah, I think you feel it on the inbound side, of course, but you feel it as well at the satisfaction. Churn rates are greatly reduced because customers like to work with your product. You feel it as well on your cost side because you don't have to have all this operation and sales guys. Because from my point of view, a lot of the operational functions and sales functions on such a product are just compensation for a product which is not yet there. So scaling with just a leaner setup, more sophisticated setup, instead of having just people which do admin, you can hire more programmers, more engineers, which will obviously give you more for the future as well. So a lot of things change if you don't have the troubles of every single hour that needs to be executed manually.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's spot on what you said. Yeah. And I wonder, what else did you tackle or have to tackle by sort of scaling a bit too early? What were other things that you needed to fix along the way, or things that you learned the hard way?
Yeah, I think scaling too early can mean as well that you're spread thin around many different areas. Because it means, operationally things are burning, then you need to do sales, and then you need to open a new country, you rebrand, you do marketing, you're a bit everywhere. And I really feel it myself personally that I was just not able to cope with everything. And then finally, your execution, the work you do is not great, and it burns a lot of energy along the way. And that was one of the reasons why I think in 2018 I felt like, it's just too much. I cannot handle that anymore, and I handed over the operational CEO role to a person which was full of energy, or still is full of energy, and could give more to the company than myself, because I just felt after this close to 10-year sprint, I was just not able to just give the right energy to the company anymore.
But that's a very big step to take as a CEO and founder of the company.
Yes.
Was that for you a very clear decision where you just said, hey, I cannot do that anymore, I don't want to do it anymore? Or was it a bit harder than that? And you say, hey, it was actually also difficult to let go and to find someone to replace you as CEO?
Yeah. Well, I think it's never easy to let go something you have built from scratch. But I think if you think about what you're doing, is like what you want. And even if you have a child, what you want is to make sure that your child can get the best possible future. And if you're not the right person to give it the best possible future, or at least not in this role, you should be grown up enough to make the place or for people that can really deliver what the company needs.
Did you also feel a bit burnt out after all these very intense years of building Coople?
It was difficult, but I think I stepped out before that.
Yeah.
So I could feel I was just really not any more productive. I could feel that my energy levels were not the same after this. But I was not burned out in the sense of really being burned out. So it was a good timing, and I felt that it was the right decision at the end. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Was it also a bit less fun, doing the job that you had with all the many things and juggling many balls at the same time?
Absolutely. I think looking back as well, I'm the kind of person who loves being in front of customers, just understanding the problems, translating them into product, doing all of that, and then as well the job changed pretty drastically from the early days when you have investors, especially if you have large investors like Goldman. Things start to be just more corporate than startup, and you start to have a lot of reports, you start to have a lot of meetings, which in the beginning are just a lot of learnings as well. Mm-hmm. But then over time you say, is this really what I want to do? I'm here. What I love to do is just being in front of customers, and I'm not the right person to just write another report.
It sounds a bit like your job shifted from being an entrepreneur to being a manager, which from my perspective are quite different.
Absolutely.
And depending on your personality traits, one is more rewarding than the other.
Yes. I'm definitely more the entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And you then, of course, decided to stay on as a board member. So how actively involved are you nowadays?
I'm still involved, obviously, as a board member, but I'm operationally helping here and there. So I still in contact with some of the customers. I do just regularly check in on the product side, do some challenging there. In some areas, I just really actively work and support the team wherever they can need the support. So I would say still I maybe around 30-40% work for Coople.
Great. It still is your baby, a part-time baby.
It's still, it will always be. So I don't think it's ever gonna go away, and that's good.
And I feel your journey is such an inspiration because not only with the co-founder that we discussed, it's very normal that ways can go different ways, mm-hmm. but also you sort of making yourself obsolete and letting go of this CEO role. I think that's also a very normal course of business to do and to take.
Absolutely. I would say that if founders stay in the company, that's rather unusual.
Yeah.
Because if you would be the manager, you probably would not start a company from scratch, mm-hmm. because this is a very different job. Yeah. So obviously there are some good cases where this entrepreneur's role grow into being the manager role and taking on a special big other roles within the company, being CEO or others. Mm-hmm. But I think from a contextual point of view, entrepreneurs like to do something which is a bit messy and just a bit all over the place, and where you're just very close to where the fun is.
Exactly.
And then over time, you just get more and more distant from that.
And eventually you make yourself obsolete. Should that also be the end goal a bit of an entrepreneur starting something?
Probably, yes. It could be that you as well shift into another role, which say, okay, I'm CEO now, I'm going to be Chief Product Officer or marketing or whatever you like to do. That's absolutely fine.
And we heard a bit, where you came from when you made that change, but then to actually make that change happen and let things go. How was that for you? I imagine that to still be a bit difficult, letting your baby walk, not fully alone, but with someone else, basically.
It was a bit of a phased let go. Yeah. So it was, I think, a year of handover and being there and doing stuff, and then gradually reducing my workload as well. And the good part is, like, over time, I could see that I got some freedom on my personal life back, because being an entrepreneur is really rewarding, but you have to pay a high price on your personal life, which means with friends, with family, with your own family. And then in 2018, my son was born as well. So I felt now, wow, I have a life. And there was just a big plus, which I think helped a lot to let go.
From one job to the other, sort of. Or from one baby to the other.
One baby to the other.
Exactly. Yeah. I have one last question on this topic. The incentive part is a very important part to eventually make a company successful. You have the right incentives in place. Yeah. And when you leave the operational role as a founder, you leave your CEO role, how do you deal with that, with the incentives, meaning the shares, in your case, I assume, with someone taking over from you? Do you sell some of your shares? Do you create a new stock option plan? Or how do you incentivize the operating team when you are still the founder, but not that much operation involved anymore?
Yeah. We introduced an employee share program quite early in days, where we said we want to have all the employees in the company being owners. Of course, not all in the same size, but we have an option share program for everybody in the company.
But I feel that's a very important part, right?
It is. Like, I think in Switzerland, people not everybody's really fully understanding what this means. And obviously there have not been a lot of big successes where people went out and say, hey, I made $1 million with my stock option. So a lot of people don't just value that and say, I get some stocks, but what about my base salary? Exactly. I need to live now, and who cares what happens, and who knows what will happen. So obviously things change. While at the beginning of the company, you have a lot of people who just burn for the dream and so on. Over time, the company gets bigger. We are more than 150 people. You have people as well there which do a good job, but maybe don't have the same burning desire to achieve a dream.
Of course. Yes. I also think that's a very normal course of business, right?
It is.
As a founder with 150 employees, you cannot expect that everyone works as hard as the founder, I guess.
Sometimes it's not even about working hard. I think it's about being passionate. Yeah. And people may confuse being passionate with working long hours, which many times are very close. But I think about if you are passionate about something, it feels that you're part of it, and then you care much more, and then you pick up the phone in a different way, you write this email in a different way. It's just very different.
That's also normal. Exactly. To stick with the baby analogy, right? Everyone thinks that their own baby is the most beautiful on earth.
Absolutely.
So that makes a lot of sense. So now with the new gained freedom, nowadays you focus on coaching, training, but also investing, in some cases even co-founding other startups. First of all, which cases have you decided to become a co-founder or an investor, and why?
It was a bit opportunistic as well. I am invested and support Eduvo, which is a marketplace in education, which I think is very close to Coople. Just not work, it's education, but I think it's very close. So I felt like I can really contribute to this, and I don't think for me it's only about money. I think it's really something with my experience I can largely bring value to. Another one is Tom Medication, which is a friend of mine who started this company. I think he started like 5-6 companies before, and I felt like he's just such a nice guy and is doing such a great job. I just want to support him in his journey, and now I'm actively helping him as well on the product side and on some other areas. And then I have some test projects for myself where I just bring up ideas and say, oh, let's see what happens. And I have a balloon here and balloon there, and eventually something may grow out of that over time. Yes.
So is co-founding or starting another company eventually a possibility for you?
I think if you're an entrepreneur, you always will think about starting a company. We'll see what happens.
Never say never.
Never say never.
What topics or areas are you particularly interested in these days?
Well, I think I'm an ICT guy, so it will definitely be something in this area. I can see areas which are still large problems. Some of them are just heavily tackled at the moment, like finance with fintech. I think as well the insurance side is still a jungle and just a bit of a ripoff for the insurance buyers. Education that I'm working on, healthcare. So there are many open areas where I think there are still huge potential and opportunities out there. I think it's more about, do I really want to let go the freedom I gained now? Because really embarking into something where you, again, want to go all in means just letting go of freedom. And at the moment, I'm not ready to do that.
You will feel when the time is ready again, yes. When you get bored from of the freedom.
Yes.
And talking about that freedom, what is next for you outside of the entrepreneurial life?
Living my life. Life is very short. And I've seen a lot of people just working hard and just missing the fun part, the family part, the friends part. So for me, it's really about finding the right balance and being there for my family, for my wife, for my kid, which had to be second a long time, and then I think they deserve, and then I enjoyed very much to be with them, and just make new experiences. And we just moved now and are traveling a lot. We are at the moment in Spain. We'll see what comes next. So the plan is to have no plan.
I love that. That's amazing. That's like living the dream, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. Victor, to wrap up the episode today, we also have some rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
I either give you a short question or different answers to choose from, and ideally you answer in one sentence.
Yep.
Let's start. Investor or founder?
Founder with investment.
Perfect combination. What does money mean to you?
It's a tool to achieve goals.
And how many hours of sleep did you get last night?
Not too much last night, 6.
What's your fondest memory of your time at Coople in the operational role?
A lot of fun and just late nights with great people.
Oh, great. And the last one, what's one thing you would change in your Coople journey?
That's a hard one.
The hardest for the end.
The hardest one. I would wait longer. Product market fit. I would just work longer on the product before scaling.
I like that. Victor, thank you so much for taking the time here at Startup Nights.
It was a pleasure.
All the best for the future. We're really eagerly looking forward to what you're tackling or building next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.